Welcome back. We are continuing in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 32. Let's go. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 32. It says, "And what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah." We are picking up with Jephthah right here. And this is continuing with this Bible Hall of Fame, the Hebrews Hall of Fame, the Faith Hall of Fame. People who we see were saved by faith, right? Everyone gets saved by faith, not by deeds. Deeds are after you get saved. They don't get you to heaven. That's what helps other people get to heaven because they get to see Jesus living through you, you being the hands and the feet of Jesus. And that's what this is all about. All right, so Jephthah, who was this person? Well, he was an illegitimate child born of a prostitute. That's right, an illegitimate child born of a prostitute, and yet you see him right here in this Hebrews in the Faith Hall of Fame. So the Israelites ran to him to help him defeat the Ammonites, and you can see that in Judges 11:30 to 34. Listen, don't count yourself out just because of your history of conduct or circumstances, and do not play the victim card. Too many people will just focus on the past. They'll focus on their circumstances and say, I'm a victim. You owe me. I have to carry all this baggage with me. That is so hard to carry around this baggage, right? Don't be a victim, be a victor. If you walk around with this mentality that I'm defeated, I've been defeated, I was dealt a bad hand. This guy could have said, right, I was born of a prostitute. My life is over. He'd have never gone anywhere. But he overcame that, right? Jesus doesn't want us to live in the past. Satan does. Jesus doesn't want us to live in the future. Satan does. Jesus wants us to live right here today in the present. And that's why he calls it the day of salvation, right? Today is the day of salvation. That's why we call it a gift, right? It's the present. It's a gift. And that's what we should live for. Don't carry around whatever you've got going on in your past, whatever was back there, whether it was sexual abuse, verbal abuse, you don't know your parents. I don't, whatever it was, right? Spousal abuse, anything, let it go. Don't play the victim card. Move forward. Ask God to help heal you from those past wounds and move forward. And also, listen, don't make promises to God. Just trust in his promises, right? Jephthah's promise led him to himself sacrificing his only child, right? A lot of people will say, God, if you get me out of this circumstance, then I will blank, blank, blank. I will go to church every day. I will sell everything and, become a missionary. I will sacrifice my child. That's what he did. And he followed through with that promise. Yet still he's listed in the Faith Hall of Fame. We're not going to go into that, do it that deep. That's more a study in Judges. But understand, don't play the victim card. God doesn't want you to. He doesn't want you to live in the past. Satan does. If you go to a lot of American counselors, psychologists and stuff, they'll want you to go and relive the past, to live in the past. They're like, well, we got to heal that past wound before you can. No, just move forward. Ask God to help you forget about it and move forward. So you can recognize it, that there's a pain in the past, but don't dwell on it. Don't live there. Don't sit on it, right? Just say, Lord, help me to get over this and move on and forgive. Because a lot of that past hurt for a lot of people is just imprisoning them with this bitterness, this unforgiveness. If you forgive and move on, it'll be a lot better and a lot more glorifying to God. And that says also of David. So let's talk about David a little bit. Some notes for this I wrote down. Oops, I'm going to pull this down. All right. So David loved God, but he still sinned quite a bit. He even killed his buddy. Yeah, he killed his buddy because he impregnated that dude's wife. So his buddy was at war. He slept with his buddy who was at war, that guy's wife, got her pregnant. So he wanted to send that guy back to war to get killed so that he wouldn't have to worry about that. Very, very sad. Yet, despite this, right, that's like one of the worst things you could think about. Adultery, impregnating his buddy's wife, having his buddy killed to cover up his sin, right? How often have you tried to cover up your sin in the past? Be honest. Come on. Think about it. Probably quite a few times. Happens all the time to a lot of people. But what we want to do is learn to be, like David, a man after God's heart, or a woman after God's heart, as the case may be. God uses our pain to draw us close. Do you hear that? Let me say that again. God uses our pain, our suffering, our toughest times to draw us close to him, to reel us in, to pull us with that tug of war rope, right? Where we're saying, okay, all right, God, you win. Because if you look at a lot of people's lives, if you look at my life, if you look at, I could go on and on, right? I know people who have been to prison for selling drugs. I know other people who have been to prison for killing someone. And their lives were later drawn close to God. They pressed into God, learned who God was, and they grew through those circumstances. And those two particular people had a strong prison ministry where they, once they got out of prison, they went back to prison to tell people about the love of Jesus. So they spend a lot of their time. One of them, that's their full-time focus, is helping people in prison, going back to prison. So, God will use your toughest times to draw you in, no matter what you're going through. If you're going through financial pain right now, if you've got marriage pains, if you've got child pains, if you've got sickness pains, whatever is ailing you, whatever that struggle is. Remember, we live in a lost and dying world, and God is going to use that pain. He's going to use that struggle to hopefully let you realize that you are not in control. Stop idolizing and worshiping yourself or other people and start idolizing and worshiping the one who is worthy of our worship. And that's it. And that is God. That is Jesus, right? He is the way, the truth, and the life. So, we could spend the rest of our life conforming to the character of God, but with setbacks from time to time, not because of God's lack of love for us, but because of our sinful nature in this fleshly body in a lost and dying world. So even when you overcome your big thing or you're drawing close to God, right? Once you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, the rest of that time is that sanctification period where you're conforming more to the character of God. You're already saved and have that salvation, but now you're conforming more to the character of God. You're learning about God. You're exhibiting God through the hands and feet, through your deeds, so that other people can see you and ask questions and learn, and that you have a strong witness and testimony, that they're not looking at you as a hypocrite, but one who is different, one who is loving and generous and kind and forgiving. Now we go on and it says, and Samuel. So Samuel was dedicated to God by his mother. This didn't give him salvation, but simply shows where a parent's heart should be. Do you get that? Baptizing a child, dedicating a child, that does not save a person. The person must invite Jesus into their lives of their own free will. But what this does is it shows where the parent's heart should be. Because the parent's number one goal for the child should not be to just keep them safe and secure, to get them help them get straight A's and become a doctor or lawyer or engineer or whatever, be the best, most successful. No. The number one goal for a parent should be leading by example, leading their children to Christ so that they can make that decision, right? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can lead a child to the cross, and then they'll get to make their own decision whether they accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior. Some do, some don't. But why don't you set them up for a better chance of success, if you will, by leading them by example, rather than being a hypocrite and saying, we're going to go to church, but then during the week, you're getting drunk, cursing all the time, you're angry, you have unforgiveness inside of you, you're hurtful to people, no one wants to be around you. They're not going to follow that lead. But if you follow a lead that's forgiving and kind and generous, they're probably going to want to follow you, right? And if they don't, God can still bring them to himself later on through whatever circumstances, a lot of time through that pain and suffering. So let's go on here. So Samuel was not in line to serve under Eli the priest, but Eli's children were, but they were rotten. So Samuel filled that role. Then God spoke to Samuel, and Samuel was a prophet. Later, Samuel's sons were wicked, so the people of Israel cried out to Samuel to give them a king. Really, the Israelites were not rejecting Samuel, but God as their king. They wanted an earthly cure. The American society, microwave, fix it now. And that's what they wanted. They're like, a king will solve our problems. That's all we need. He appointed Saul, then Saul's replacement, David. Samuel was obedient, consulted God, prayed, and responded to God's instructions. All right, a lot of times people in America right now are looking around, looking for some cure. If we only get this person in office, everything will be great. If only this, and this lined up, everything would be perfect. No. right? Yes, we want godly leaders who glorify Jesus. Yes, we want people in office who glorify Jesus. Yes, we want a lot of things, but the thing we should want more than anything is saying, I'm okay regardless because God is still in control, and he will use bad leaders. He will use evil people. He will use horrible circumstances to draw people to him. He doesn't want those awful circumstances, but he will use them. Satan is the ruler of this world and running around and causing all this chaos because we live in this lost and dying world where our free will, we're born with sin. We have this free will. We choose to sin. But when you come to Christ, the goal there is that you're not sinless. He is. You're declared righteous and sinless because his blood covers you, but you become and sin less. Over your lifetime, you sin less and less and less. You start to realize, oh, I don't want to be doing this because it doesn't glorify God. So tomorrow we will pick up, and that says in Samuel and the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms. Yeah, we'll pick up on there tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll pick up on verse 33. Have a blessed day. Check us out on any page, major podcast platform. Just type in Daily Verse by Verse Mike Massey. Daily Verse by Verse, Pastor Mike Massey. Have a blessed day.